There are chapters of history we were never meant to read. Entire scrolls vanished, teachings silenced, knowledge once considered sacred, locked away, declared dangerous. Imagine this. Hidden beneath stone cathedrals and ancient libraries lie texts that tell a very different story of humanity's past. Stories of spiritual awakening, of civilizations that spoke of a third eye, of wisdom that empowered the individual rather than the institution. Why were these texts banned? Why did the church fight so hard to keep them out of sight? Some say they contain secrets about the soul, that humans hold within themselves a divine spark, a direct connection to the universe. If true, this would challenge the very foundation of religious authority. Picture a candlelit chamber in medieval Europe, monks copying manuscripts in silence. Then, a command arrives. Certain pages must be removed, certain words erased forever. The order comes not from God, but from men who fear what would happen if the people discovered the truth. Tonight, we step into that silence. We follow the trail of the forbidden, and we ask, what hidden knowledge was powerful enough to be banned for centuries? To understand the story of forbidden knowledge, we must begin in the early centuries of Christianity, a time when dozens of texts, gospels, and teachings circulated among believers. Not all of them agreed. Some told very different versions of events. There was not one Christianity, but many. Some groups believed the soul could be freed through knowledge, gnosis. Others believed the divine was not distant, but within each person. These ideas were radical. They threatened the growing power of the church. By the 4th century, Rome had taken notice. The Emperor Constantine, eager to unify the empire, sought one version of Christianity, one story, one truth. At the Council of Nicaea in 325 AD, leaders gathered to decide which texts would survive and which would be cast aside. Picture the scene. Bishops gathered in a great hall, the air thick with incense and politics. Scrolls laid out on long wooden tables. Some Gospels speak of Jesus performing miracles in his childhood. Others speak of Mary Magdalene not as a follower, but as a teacher. Still others describe a vision of humanity awakening to divine power. But not all would be chosen. Many were declared heresy, a word that meant not false, but forbidden. The Gospel of Thomas, for example, contains sayings of Jesus not found in the Bible. One of them reads, "The kingdom of God is within you and all around you." This was dangerous. If the divine is within, then people do not need a priest to reach it. They do not need the church to stand in between. Other texts spoke of reincarnation, of souls returning again and again, learning, evolving. But reincarnation was later removed from official teaching. Why? Because if souls had endless lifetimes to grow, the threat of eternal punishment, hellfire, would lose its power. Now imagine the vast desert of Egypt, where scrolls lay hidden in clay jars. The Nag Hammadi Library, discovered in 1945, contained Gospels that had been buried for over 1,500 years. Why were they hidden? Because owning them in the early centuries could mean death. These writings offered a different vision of faith, a vision of self-discovery, of inner awakening, of the third eye as a gateway to divine knowledge. But to protect authority, the church had to control the story. To keep one truth, other truths had to vanish. Picture monks in candlelight again, carefully scratching out words with ink, rewriting passages, ensuring only the approved version survived. Imagine underground chambers where banned texts were sealed away, their wisdom kept from the world. The question remains, were these decisions made for the sake of order, or was it an intentional act to keep humanity blind to its own spiritual power? This is the setup to our mystery. The stage is set. On one side, a church rising to power. On the other, knowledge deemed too dangerous, hidden away. And the deeper we look, the stranger it becomes. The deeper we go, the more we discover a hidden world, a spiritual underground where forbidden texts whispered truths that threaten the official story. One of the most striking examples is the Gnostic tradition. The word gnosis means knowledge, but not book knowledge, inner knowledge. The Gnostics believed that each person carries a divine spark, a fragment of the infinite source. To awaken that spark, one had to look inward. Imagine sitting in a dim chamber lit by oil lamps, listening as a teacher says, "The divine is not far above in the heavens, it is within you." For many, this was liberating, but for the church, it was dangerous. Because if everyone has access to God within, what power remains for the priesthood? This is why many Gnostic texts were destroyed. They taught a spirituality of direct experience, of meditation, vision, awakening. Some even described the third eye long before modern spiritual circles revived it. They believed that through this inner eye, humans could see beyond the illusions of the material world. Now picture the desert caves of Qumran, where the Dead Sea Scrolls were discovered in 1947. Scrolls wrapped in linen, hidden in clay jars for 2,000 years. Among them were ancient hymns, apocalyptic visions, and fragments of texts that echoed themes later banned. They reveal a world of early mystics who believed the universe was far older and more mysterious than official doctrine allowed. But what if the suppression of knowledge was not only about theology, but also about power? Take the idea of reincarnation. Some early church fathers, like Origen, taught that souls return again and again. He believed reincarnation explained divine justice, why some are born into wealth, others into hardship. But in 553 AD, at the Second Council of Constantinople, the doctrine was declared heresy. Why? Because if people believed they had multiple lives to evolve, the fear of eternal damnation lost its grip. Fear was a tool of control. Think of the architecture of Europe's grand cathedrals. Stained glass windows, stone arches, soaring ceilings. But hidden in plain sight, you find esoteric symbols, the flower of life, the all-seeing eye, strange carvings of green men with vines sprouting from their mouths. Why would such symbols appear inside Christian houses of worship? Were these remnants of older knowledge woven into the fabric of the new faith? Let's take a closer look at one example. The pinecone staff at the Vatican. In the courtyard of the Vatican stands a giant bronze pinecone flanked by peacocks. To most, it looks decorative. But across cultures, the pinecone represents the pineal gland, the third eye within the brain, believed to be the seat of higher vision. The same symbol appears in Egyptian carvings, in Hindu temples, and even in Mesopotamian art, where gods hold pinecone-like objects aloft. Why is it in the heart of Catholicism? Is it a relic of forbidden knowledge, standing silently in the open, unnoticed? Visualize this: a secret library beneath the Vatican, miles of shelves filled with manuscripts never shown to the public. Historians believe it contains letters from ancient kings, banned gospels, even maps of lands that no longer exist. Only a few scholars are allowed inside. What truths lie hidden in the dark? And then, there are the lost civilizations, cultures that seem to rise suddenly, with knowledge far beyond their time. The Sumerians spoke of beings from the heavens who gifted them with wisdom. The Egyptians aligned pyramids with the stars in ways modern engineers still marvel at. The Mayans tracked celestial cycles with uncanny precision. Could these civilizations have carried fragments of the same forbidden knowledge? Knowledge of the soul, of the cosmos, of the cycles of time. Imagine walking through the ruins of a temple where carvings show a man seated in meditation, eyes closed, with a radiant halo, not unlike depictions of the third eye in Eastern traditions. Were these coincidences or echoes of a truth known across the ancient world? The Church declared such parallels pagan, dangerous, but perhaps they were suppressing a universal pattern. The idea that humans can awaken, that spiritual vision is not limited to one religion. Some scholars suggest that what was banned was not false, but too empowering. Teachings that placed responsibility back into the hands of the individual. If the kingdom of heaven is within, then priests, rulers, and institutions lose their control. Consider the Gospel of Mary Magdalene, discovered in fragments in the late 19th century. It portrays Mary not as a mere follower, but as one who received visions and secret teachings from Jesus. She asks questions the other disciples do not. Some even call her the Apostle of the Apostles. Why was her gospel not included? Perhaps because it gave voice to a woman in a world where authority was to remain in male hands. And then there are the apocryphal gospels, the Gospel of Philip, the Gospel of Judas, the Book of Enoch. Each offers glimpses of a cosmos filled with layers of reality, angelic beings, and visions of human transformation. The Book of Enoch, for example, describes watchers from the heavens, teaching humanity arts and sciences, too mythic for some, too threatening for others. Now picture yourself standing in a library where these texts are laid out before you, pages yellowed with age, ink fading, but words still alive. They speak of a divine presence not limited to one creed, of a hidden wisdom buried in symbols and visions. The air is heavy with silence, as if the walls themselves know the weight of what was suppressed. The mystery deepens when we realize how often these banned ideas reappear in other traditions. In Hinduism, the third eye is the Ajna chakra, a center of insight. In Buddhism, enlightenment is awakening to the nature of reality. In Native American traditions, the inner vision connects to spirit guides. Could it be that across continents, across millennia, humanity kept discovering the same truth, only to have it buried again and again? We return then to the Church. Why ban these teachings? Why erase them? Some argue it was for unity, to keep one voice among many. Others believe it was fear, that if humanity realized its own spiritual power, authority would crumble, and so the forbidden knowledge was sealed away. But like seeds beneath the soil, it never truly vanished. From time to time it reemerges, in ancient discoveries, in mystics' visions, in the symbols carved into stone. The question is, are we ready to see it? So we return to the question, what exactly was banned, and why? From the Gnostic Gospels to the Book of Enoch, from symbols carved in stone to the pine cone hidden in the Vatican courtyard, the pattern is clear. Again and again, knowledge that empowered the individual was silenced. Knowledge that suggested the divine spark lived within each human being. Picture for a moment the hidden vaults beneath Rome. Endless shelves, manuscripts locked in silence. Imagine what could be read there. Texts that tell us who we really are, where we came from, and what powers lie dormant within. Could those pages reveal that humanity itself is far older than official history allows? Could they contain instructions for awakening the third eye, the inner vision feared by rulers for centuries? And what if those same secrets resurface now? In our age of discovery, when ancient sites are uncovered, when scrolls once thought lost are translated, when spiritual seekers are reawakening to forgotten wisdom, what happens if humanity sees clearly again? Would the world change? Would religion collapse? Or would we finally understand that the truth was never outside of us, but always within? The Church said these teachings were heresy, dangerous. But perhaps the real danger was never the knowledge itself. Perhaps the real danger was that it could not be controlled. So the mystery lingers. The scrolls, the symbols, the whispers of lost civilizations, all pointing towards something vast, something hidden. And now the question is left to us. Will we continue to accept only the story we were given? Or will we dare to look deeper, to seek out the fragments of the forbidden and piece together the truth for ourselves? Because the greatest secret of all may not be in the books that were banned. It may be in you.